part of that, though, you've gone from Conte's style of football to Sarri's style of football, which for me are like two polar opposites in terms of blocks. The Conte play with a block, very difficult to break down, happy for the opposition to have the ball, to Sarri, who now wants to completely dominate possession. To change it over in a space of 6 months in a year is so difficult, so difficult. So I think the task for the Chelsea board now is to say, is this the man that we're going to back for the long term? Because if it is, then he needs, for me, David Luiz is a liability in the back four in terms of the way he defends his positioning. Marcos Alonso, for me, is an out-and-out wing-back. He doesn't like to play in a four, and he got isolated on the first goal today in transition on Herrera's goal from Rashford going in between. It was always the space in between him and David Luiz that's a problem in the back four.
Didn't even see it though, did he? That was the
what happened with Pep Guardiola when he went in at Man City?
Exactly.
He gets backed with the players that he wants to fit his way of playing. Now, for all of the talk about Kante playing as a defensive midfield player, Kante is a fluid defensive midfield player. He's not a fixed. At Manchester City, Fernandinho won't move. He's a fixed pivot in Manchester City's team for the structure of them in possession. But Kante doesn't do that for teams. Kante is the best defensive midfield player in the world.
For me, he needs to sit there instead of Jorginho, or sit both of them in there at the same time. Because if you're playing David Luiz, as you said, I'm with you with David Luiz. Yeah. I don't think he's good enough in a four. So then I've got to put two players in front then.
Exactly.
And then put them two, and then have five or four players.
That's the question that Sarri needs to come up with. But what I'm saying, sorry, Emma, what I'm saying in terms of the way that Sarri wants to play is very similar to Guardiola. Yeah. And the key function, when Fernandinho was out of the team at Manchester City, became very difficult for Manchester City this season. That fixed pivot who can get on the ball and make passes and dictate, that's the way he wants to play, and that's why Kante's not playing there. So Sarri now either has to adapt his way of playing to fit the fact that, come on, Kante for me is absolutely unbelievable for one of the best midfield players in the world. But how do you fit the both of them in his side? That's the difficult thing for him at the moment. This time last year, we spoke about Antonio Conte's frustration in terms of transfer window, in terms of bringing the players he wants to fit the way he wants to play. He was so outspoken in terms of his frustration at the time, in terms of what was happening at Chelsea. Now you're bringing another manager in with a completely different philosophy. Are you going to back him, or is it going to be, okay, that's not working, let's jump to the next manager? Another manager comes in and says, right, I need to get this player, this player, this player. It's not going to work that way. There's going to come a point where you're going to have to go through some difficult times in order to get long-term success. But the question for Chelsea at the moment is Sarri that man? I think that's what it boils down to. So, because the first part of the season, they were outstanding. They were absolutely outstanding. They went a long time unbeaten, played wonderful football. Everyone's lauding the way that he's gone about his work. Now they've had their first real dip in form, and all of a sudden Sarri's got to go. So for me, as a club, that it's a huge decision for Chelsea right now. Are you going to stick with Sarri and he's going to stick with his principles as that's the way he works as a coach, or are you going to go a different route again? Yeah, but the same thing, I remember where Guardiola was in charge, losing 4 at Everton, and everyone saying he can't play this way, he can't play this way, sticks with it, gets backed by the board. And it's not, being backed by the board isn't just about transfer budget, it's about that's our man. That's our man. No noises come out.
Money buys that man.
Money buys that man. But what I'm saying is, look at Pochettino. He's given time. Pochettino hasn't spent huge amounts of money, but everybody at the club, from the top down in the academy, know that's the way we're going. He's the man we're following. He's going to be there as long as he wants.
If players get a whiff of vulnerability about the manager, they're onto it like a shot.
Listen, we're vulnerable beings on a daily basis, regardless. So, and you're being the manager of Chelsea, I can say that from my own perspective, we are permanently vulnerable because the expectation of the club is winning, and that's our culture, that's our expectation.
And the history of the club is to change.
Yeah.
The history of the club, the recent history of the club is if things go wrong, if things start to go not how we want them to, we change the manager. So that automatically puts pressure on Sarri. So for me, there comes a point, it might be Sarri, it might be not, where you say, that's our manager for the next 2 years. The reason we appointed this manager is to build something. To catch up. Because at the moment, Chelsea are behind Liverpool, they're behind Manchester City. So what do you expect them to do, go and win the league?